start. There it is. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bienvenidos. You are here on Cultivating Voices, live poetry. Today it is our second reading of December and our second to last of the 2024 season. And if it is the second Sunday, of course, you are here for our new books showcase. And today, our showcase, I am just so immensely grateful for the role and that I am honored to experience in bringing poetry from around the world through space and time to all of you watching here live with us in our Zoom room and on Facebook and YouTube. I'm your host for today, Sandy Yannone, and with the deepest thanks to Don Krieger and Kim Ports Parsons for all their dedication to bringing this poetry into our view and ears and care. Well, in this season of light, at the end of a lyrical and also a very challenging year, we wanted to offer a true gift of poetry. And this new book showcase today is really our gift to all of you who have been with us this year. And some of you have been with us the whole 5 years of our journey. And we certainly have the gift of poets today. Joining us is Rachael Hegarty, Sophie Cabot Black, Coggin, and Marie Howe. So folks, I'm going to try to keep my comments to a minimum and just sit back and enjoy. I encourage you, get something warm to drink. We've heard it's stormy in many places out there today. Get something warm to drink. Sit back and enjoy this truly luminous showcase of poetry that we are about to experience together. Before I turn to today's constellation of poets, however, I want to just thank our wonderful poets who shared poems last week in our Poets Focus on wonder, as well as the many of you who joined us live to listen. And just a few reminders about the reading today. Our chat is live for you. We hope you will send your praise, your gratitude, your love to the poets. The poets will provide any content notices that they need about their poems. Of course, we ask them to do that. And during the readings, you will find links to all of their current books. And again, this is the holiday season. I cannot think of a better gift than poetry in these times. So I hope that if you have the resources, that you will be generous in your purchase of the books today and for yourself and or for other of your beloveds. Well, we have been fortunate for our first reader today to have this Salmon sister of mine join us numerous times in one of our new book showcases in the past and during our tribute to Evan Boland, as she was a former student of Evan's. And I'm just so grateful to have Rachael Hegarty here with us today. Rachael Hegarty is a Dubliner and the seventh child of a seventh child. Her debut collection, Flight Paths Over Finglas, won the 2018 Shine Strong Award. A child survivor of the Talbot Street bomb, Rachel's May Day 1947. It's an extraordinary book, friends. It was my introduction to Rachael, was that book, is a memorial to the 39 lives lost that day, and it has received international acclaim. Her third collection, Dancing with Memory, is a ballroom of recollections for her ma, who lived with dementia, and her latest collection, Wildflowers on the Darndale Roundabout, was inspired by her kids and other Fridays for Future climate activists. All the books are from Salmon Poetry. Would you please join me in welcoming Rachael Hegarty?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that gorgeous introduction, Sandy. You're a star of our, and thanks to Kim and Don for organizing all of this. It's such an honor to be reading with Kai and Sophie and with Marie. How it's wildly honorable. Um, so this book is really about the 8 habitats or landscapes of flowers in Ireland. Um, so the first landscape I'm going to read it for you is the bog, of course. Bogs are very important in Ireland for so many reasons. Um, they take up their little carbon sinkholes. And I wrote this, it's called an ashling, and in the Irish language tradition, Oscailga and Moshanchanga, an ashling poem is a vision poem. And usually in an ashling poem, the poet is sitting back and dreaming, and a beautiful, gorgeous woman appears in his dream and says, "Get up and fight for Irish freedom." But in this one, I have the flowers waking up this poet and telling her to do something for climate justice. Bog flowers, an ashling. When your head is wrecked and your heart needs to dream, there is nothing as marvellous as a mossy bed on Burrow Bog. You'll have vision after vision, flower after flower, coming to sit alongside you and have the chats. First up is Bog Myrtle, with fingers as soft as catkins. She holds your hand, talks to you about the fragility of bog beam or her blushing petals, and footstock strong enough to sip carbon cocktails, along with her sister, Bog Rosemary. That one looks like a pink snowdrop and can drink for Ireland. Then up pops Marsh Marigold and dares you to leap the ditch. Her golden sepals make you laugh and take a run and jump. You land lockside and salute her water lily cousin. White blooms on jade hearts make the dragonflies flock. But the most forlorn orchid, Irish lady's tresses, in her sad, creamy dresses, looks like Deirdre of the Sorrows. Wild Iris looks up for a fight. Her sunlight colour unfurls from swords of green leaves like she is raising a flag of war. You get deadeners from bog cotton. She's well got with the world's wife. Any day now, Gaia's gonna let loose and cause more climate strife. Flowers circle you, stalks whip you, water lily wants to drown you. Marsh myrtle has her fingers around your neck. Bog rosemary lobs fistfuls of soil at you. You swear to do better, act up and make changes. The mob of blooms release you. You wake up, you get going. For the grasslands and the meadows and the fields, I wrote sonnets because I love that word sonatina, the Italian for a little song. I just like the idea of making little songs for meadows. Buttercups. A strip of grassland near the basin. Ma and her sisters on a bench, nattering, then whispering, glancing over at us, little ears, and then back to nattering. The brothers play kickabout, their balls half burst. Still, it doesn't stop them kicking the lard out of it and one another. The ma tells them to stop being canats. But I'm splayed out on a bed of new grass, lapping up early spring sunshine, birdsong, and the magic glow of a buttercup neath the chin of me sister Carolyn, a first memory of flowers, petals, illumine all the dark places. Um, the next ones I do are heroic couplets, and they're for the flowers that exist on the coastlines in Ireland. And I think there is something heroic about flowers growing on that space between the land and the sea. I also think Probably because my ma, when I was 13, gave me a gift of William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Experience. I think those rhyme ends stuck with me. Sea Aster. I fret to see purple peep out of the rocks. We don our Santa togs and swim socks. Forgotten Paris talks of climate change. Now wonky seasons are all out of range. Me nanny called this bloom summer's farewell. Winter in Waterford, we watched the waves swell. Um, I lived in Japan for 3 years. Um, I loved it. I had great fun. And they have this whole idea of making up haiku when you have a moon party or when you have a snow viewing party or when you have a cherry blossom party and you get to drink sake and make up haiku. I wasn't great at doing haiku in Japanese, but Jesus, I was fantastic at drinking the sake. But there you have it. Um, so I'll read this. I read this one for Kai, even though it's not an orchid like for Thailand, but it is a great place, Asia, for flowers. Not primroses, just right cheeky ones, thriving under budding trees. Japan. Um, I live near Howth Head. Some of you might know it. It features in some Irish books like Ulysses. Indeed, it's where James Joyce and Laura Barnacle had their first kiss and more. Uh, but I chose there to do open forms because the heathlands and the moors and the limestones in Ireland are just places of sky and soil and blooms. I love it. Bell Heather. Is Howth Head a heathland? There's a question. I don't know. I don't care. The bell heather riots, soft purples and hard pinks, all over the Sutton side, and I'm made up by the view. Soundless bells rock out and shoulder up to the north wind. The Irish Sea could be the DJ at a silent disco, and Bell Heather, a dancing queen at a nightclub called Hope Head. It's a gorgeous spot. If he's come to Ireland, I'll take it. So the last poem that I'm going to read here is a title poem, Wildflowers on the Darndale Roundabout. And it's from a section that's called Urban Pastorals. And I'm just fascinated by how the flowers grow in wastelands and walls and all over cityscapes. And I'll read this for Sophie and for Marie, because I think their poetry and Kai's poetry is, yeah, just like a wildflower grows and left to its own devices will just bloom and bloom and bloom. And thanks again to everybody for listening, and especially thanks to all the organisers, Sandy and Kim, Darren, you're fantastic. Wildflowers on the Darndale Roundabout. It's that September sunshine, that thank Jesus weather before the months of bone cold darkness. Home time traffic, slow going. So I put me hand out the car window and let it glance off the blossoms, standing tall on the Malahide Road. Bachelor buttons, poppies, flag lilies, cosmos and lupins. The colours catch me eye. A narrow corridor of rubies, ambers, violets, pinks, yellows. Nature's painters have triumphed here, fought back the gloom of tarmac and concrete. Best of all, the Darndale Roundabout is a fairy fort of blooming chaos. A riot of wildflowers makes me drive around the whole thing twice, lapping up that September sunshine and drinking in the colors of late bloomers. Thanks very much.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Rachel. Rachel, I see your book cover behind us because I know the cover because I read your book for the
Ah,
yeah, can we show everyone? Because it just we know this salmon designer, Siobhan, just does such beautiful, beautiful work, and it really evokes that idea of the roundabout. And I
well,
love that riot of wildflowers. And I just feel like for some of us, it's approaching officially winter. Not everyone in the room, it's not winter, but I just really appreciate so much that floral extravaganza and, also that call for us to be the stewards
mm,
of climate and climate change. So important. That is a current that is running through the collection. And what's so interesting too is I loved how you used form to inform the flower as well. Oh, thank you just so much for starting us off. I love your work. I love you, and I will definitely be coming to visit you to go take that ride around the roundabout with you next time I'm over.
more than welcome.
Thank
I'm
you. That's Rachel Hegarty, everyone. Um, Books are from Salmon Poetry. You'll see them in the chat. Um, please do purchase and gift and do whatever you can to spread poetry. I mean, I believe poetry is offering us an opportunity to elevate itself in particularly in so many places around the world that are fraught with so many things. I think poetry is an extremely, extremely powerful antidote to what we are experiencing rhetorically in the world. And so please do help us and share poetry where you can. Well, our next reader, I have been reading Sophie Cabot Black's poetry since her exquisite, exquisite debut collection, The Misunderstandings of Nature, arrived in my hands. And I don't think we've ever met. And so I'm feeling the feels for that today, friends. Her poetry has just spoke volumes to me in terms of its landscapes of my home state of Connecticut and the landscapes of my heart. They really collide beautifully in her collections. And I do experience her poetry as one of exquisite collisions. And I'm extremely grateful to have Sophie Cabot Black on the program. Well, Sophie Cabot Black has four poetry collections. The one I just mentioned, The Misunderstanding of Nature, which received the Poetry Society of America's first book award. The Descent, which won the 2005 Connecticut Book Award, and The Exchange, which received a starred Publishers Weekly review. Her newest collection is Geometry of the Restless Herd, and the poems are absolutely luminous. I've had the pleasure of reading them, which also has a starred review from Publishers Weekly. Her poetry has appeared in numerous magazines, including The Atlantic Monthly and The New Yorker. Please join me in welcoming to Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, Sophie Cabot Black.
Thank you so much, Sandy. And I'm super grateful to be here today. It's a wintry Sunday afternoon and listening to Rachel and the joy. First of all, I love what you said about poetry, Sandy. We forget that it can be so important, especially during these times. And Rachel's reading and Rachel's poems brought so much joy to the world at the same time that it reminds us about how words really matter and as long as we can cross over to the natural world and we see it as outside our windows, etc. It's something that we need to hold dear to our hearts. So thank you for including us all, and thank you all for showing up. This is maybe the third time I've ever done a Zoom meeting, so it's a little different for me. So um, I'm not going to talk about the poems. I'm just going to read a few of them, but this is my fourth collection, and I tend to finish a book every 10 years or so. And so these particular poems center around my home place, where I am right now, in a small New England farm in Connecticut, and where we've lived for decades. I grew up on it, and it's now full of reasons to rethink how we live as farmers, with or without animals, with or without cultivating the land. And a lot of these issues are brought up by climate change, but also the political. So as this book came together, I could see how all of those issues readily related to our country's struggle with understanding where we came from and with where we are headed, and the intersections of tribes and other creatures and of power that we hold with each other. So I just wanted to set that up, frame that up, because this is not just a book about the small farm I grew up on. I'm just going to jump in and read a few poems from the book. And again, thank you so much for having me here in this wonderful space. I look forward to hearing the others. And thank you again, Rachael. As to why we will not stop making the hats. This time, it did not begin with the beaver. Instead, a little further up the mountain where the sheep we keep each year come through winter, enough to answer us, enough for us to shear, deft before the coming storm, to take away from the body what it did not know it grew, and then, astonished each spring, to feel the quickening of the lamb, the heft of sudden weight crossing one more patch of snow. All with an eye out for the cougar or some such animal of which the DNA is no longer what it might have been, the coyote now as part dog, part wolf, already commonplace. We have come to know the truth as no longer true. The old ways do not work against the new. How to reconcile the bear as she wakes up to what we now call ours, and how to prepare for the unforeseen as we throw each sheep handily on their back, to begin at the belly, fleece to shear, to wash and pick, to card, to bale, to weigh, to the depot where all will be spun, dyed into the wool we want, knowing it can be done again and again without much death. For the sheep, she rises, shakes herself back into where she was before, grass, lamb, watches until we have pulled away as we head back down the mountain. And in something like ability or capacity, the condition of being human or female or both, we want to knit this out into dawnlight, into a long stream of making sense, into where we will go next, into skeins of design and colors of what blood can mean, pinks, such as rose or carmine, wanton or nearly red, timid or raw, healing or newly born, scarlet, blaze, bloom or shell or blush, like the small fingers of a wakening child, each stitch to repeat, pearl and dispatch, to get this done and into that which we can call sustainable, so those from behind can choose from the many hues. Likewise, to walk forward with covered or uncovered heads. Democracy until. We believed we knew what made us look up from the embers and had been trying to remember gathering there. Some of us could no longer breathe. Some of us talked too much or too fast, asked too many questions, some not enough. We stood and watched our shadows lengthen as if no more was owed. How long had we listened to the agent, to each other, thinking we were full of choice? Stake by stake, plot by plot, the sum would never run out. My animals, your animals, my barn, your barn. We were never ready to know the herd. Each coming from somewhere else fills in until whatever might be missing does not easily fit. And so the field becomes the shape the market requires. And to set fire just before heading on is also to say it does not matter which part is played, but that it gets played. We move faster at the end, understanding we cannot survive our own boundary. Tired of being told we are how we chose, now too much to own. Tired of the neighbor behind each door, unsure of what is said. To bear the far now close, to inherit what we did not make but now must pay for, finished with doing what we need to get what we want, knowing it only begins later, after we tell the story, how blade by blade the grass returns, under rut or drought, cut or torn, under light that cannot keep to itself, and the wheel notches again to the top. Any one of us can climb down. And whoever checks the axle and the bolt will only tighten what again will loosen. How we speak when we cannot speak. Having put the house in order, I went up as far as possible. The stair that cannot deny its noise in the quiet of all fed and watered, while you followed past the sleeping, the dresser, the chair. My two wrists taken up by your one absolute hand as we lay ourselves down, each corner of the bed another reason to wheel round, the curtain, the sheets, the breadth that moves like a lost dog between us. Two wolves who watch each other as if back from some disaster and have come to know how it might be with the other, each on opposite ridges, panting, if you will, I will. In the time of leaves. No longer could we find the snake, the lake revised back into mud, ledge, and lichen. A clear sky, remorse and no track found. Loss cracked underfoot, trees bared, their limbs to later let in stars, each fang of light. Let all be peril, without the choir of thought. Your breath, my hand, our walking. The leaf has done its work, above, now below. Turning against what bore it, then to each other, then to the self. Each leaf, intricate with its version, and at our feet. Runt. I am the one the meadow did not keep, neither early nor late, nor bitter storm nor season, and already vanishing. For 3 days I stayed at her side. I fit my heart to hers. Amid those who grow to market, I was not to be long. Buried as deep as what the next day may bring, made certain with a pile of any nearby stone. My one mother, ready to let go the smallest, and the smallest goes. Perhaps I was a reckoning for luck. But first, I could not stay away, and then I was finished. I looked back only once, tail pointed nowhere, morning fog not yet lifted, as I turn, already gone. The longer prayer. Field of silos, of did we keep enough to keep us through? Walk the fence line where the middle rail broke, reset the traps by the manger. Did we pay enough attention? Should have done with less, put up more, learned the ditch, repeated the row, the glare of sun in your eyes, again at your back, the undersong of the sickle to rise and lower, the tractor that still runs. Forgive the mind its winter, its gnaw. The softening ground waits, the ridge where the sky steeples with spire, wind vane, rod, to receive what we cannot handle. In sight, as elsewhere small is the first light to light, each room becoming many houses, filled with their own good doings, until astonished you also remain. The unlost birds come back to crown the trees, and do not wonder how each branch bursts into again, how free fall is ever the stars. Come home, changed, or be changed. Every harvest will be weighed against the still to be done. Leaving the field. I watched you kneel to measure what was against what was not. The horse and cow rattled the gate as you turned to the road through. Abundance, no longer anything but another day done. Burn the old grasses, plow in the remainder, the dusk folds to an emptied bucket. Each row sown was how you would never raise enough to stop or get out before you began to hate what might fail. You will never be what the field remembers. The latch holds, alone in the grief of being outside what you have made, and the possible that lies in whatever green you leave behind. And I'm going to read from another book, my last poem. Thanks again for doing this. It's lovely to be in this space. Our house. As the leaves turn their backs on us and the lilac gives over to dusk, nothing is ever certain, not even the house. Stubborn in twilight as it outlasts the grove it was wrestled from. Those left behind, the oak and ancient elm, lean against each other as if in consent. Out of dirt, out of some small mistake, comes the seedling. It too has learned to watch. As we walk in and out of what wilderness was and will again become, as we enter our home, the way we enter love, returning from elsewhere, to call out each other's names, pulling the door closed behind us. Thank you so much. Look forward to everyone else.
Oh my gosh. That is Sophie Cabot Black. Thank you for those poems. To have heard the poems, have listened deeply to the poems is an entirely different experience than the amazing experience I've had reading them on the page. So thank you so, so much. And I was thinking so much about what you said early on about reconciliation, the word reconciliation, and how really these poems for me were bringing together the pastoral with the unnatural, with the natural, and letting them cohabitate together, um, with really the condition of being human, both the animal and the anime, and
Mm.
them all being together in this really quite extraordinary collection, Geometry of the Restless Bird. Thank you again, Sophie, and I just look forward to being in conversation with you more over
Thank you.
time.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
It was our absolute pleasure. Oh my gosh, thank you. Friends, I mentioned that this reading was really a gift. I knew it was going to be a gift to me, and I knew it was going to be a gift to all of you. And um, so I'm just truly, truly amazed at what we're hearing today. I'm amazed. I'm pretty amazed all the time because poetry amazes me. And we really are just quite grateful to be offering this our final new book showcase of our 2024 season. There is more to come. We're heading into 2025, which will be and approaching our 5th anniversary. So stay with us. There is just more extraordinary poetry to come, and we need as much extraordinary poetry as the world can handle, and the world needs to handle poetry. Well, our next poet is certainly indicative of that necessity to bring poetry into view and into community. She's been doing it every single Wednesday for all the years that I've known her. And she's also the host of the longest running continuous open mic in the country. Hi, Coggin. If there is ever a poet I feel graced to have befriended during this pandemic, you are at that top of my list. Kai was the first to bring us poetry during the pandemic. My sister and I looked as we were seeing if there was any poetry out there online, and we first found Wednesday night poetry, and then found in Ireland Not the Time to Be Silent. So to say that Kai has been an inspiration to me as we began cultivating voices live poetry is a true understatement. We've had numerous times and opportunities to collaborate virtually and in person since, and she is a poet of extraordinary expansiveness. If you've heard her read here on our program before, or seen her on Wednesday Night Poetry, or the many other places we have been fortunate that she graces. And of course, she's joined us on a new book showcase before, and also on our Poetry Pride Parade. So I'm always so, so overjoyed when I get to hear you read, because I know you are often the person showcasing others. It's all amazing joy to hear you. Kai Coggin, she, her, is the inaugural poet laureate of Hot Springs, Arkansas, the author of 5 collections, and a recipient of a 2024 Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. She has won fellowships and numerous awards, and her poems have been published in Poetry, the Academy of American Poets, and elsewhere. Coggin is a certified master naturalist. You see, there's a really wonderful theme here developing today. A kindergarten through 12 teaching artist in poetry with the Arkansas Arts Council, and host, as I mentioned, of the longest running consecutive weekly open mic series in the United States, Wednesday Night Poetry. She lives with her wife in a very peaceful valley where they tend to wild ones and to each other. Would you please give a very warm welcome to Kai Coggin?
Thank you so much, Sandy. Your enthusiasm is always so sincere and so infectious, and I just always feel your heart. Imagine, like, as soon as I see you, I can just feel it radiating into my space. And so from one space holder to another, thank you so much for all that you do to lift up so many voices in the literary community. Thank you to Kim and to Dawn behind the scenes, and thank you to my fellow readers, Rachael and Sophie and Marie. It's an honor to end this year celebrating our new books. My new book, Mother of Other Kingdoms, came out on Earth Day, April 22nd of this year, and I'm going to dive in. This is called Petals. This morning, I ache to touch you. Outside, the wind is cold and rowdy, ripping spring buds off the trees with a degree of wildness that is reserved only for the natural. Between seasons, it is your name that holds me. The ground is littered with wind-swept petals, and all I hear is she loves me, she loves me, she loves me. Hungers. For Adicoleus virginianus. The mother doe and her fawn have been eating all my flowers. I wake up to water a massacre of leaves, guillotined color, hoof prints left in moonlight. I imagine the vibrant pink roses and hibiscus crunching in their teeth, bursting bright hues, rich red dahlia petals lining their long, thick throats, the playful zinnias sliding through whatever curves deer intestines might wander like, and mammoth sunflower heads blooming 1,000 rising golden lights in the underbellies of this dear mother, her daughter still spotted with newness, and I don't mind my flowers finding their masticating mouths, this wild decadence I planted from seed, making way to their hungers. This one I'm going to read in honor of my homeland of Ireland, where I have never been to. So Rachael, I may come and romp around the wildflowers with you someday. My grandmother was an orphan, an Irish orphan named Imogene. And my Filipino grandmother, my maternal grandmother's name is Patrocinia, and she's a Filipino rice farmer. She passed away about 10 years ago. And this is for my grandmothers. I never really got to know them, but this is for them. Patrocinia and Imogene, a villanelle for my grandmothers. I am a granddaughter, alive and unclaimed, of grand maternal hearts, Patrocinia and Imogene. All I know of them is their names. My longing for them these words proclaim. Patrocinia, a buried seed on a rice farm in the Philippines. I am a granddaughter, alive and unclaimed. A spirit within me rises fiery and untamed. My other matriarch, Irish orphan Imogene, all I know of her is her name. In sepia, her soft red curls and round face fill a frame. Mothers of my parents with oceans lost between, I am granddaughter, alive and unclaimed. I imagine their wisdom, what cells make us the same, how each shaped their own lineage as someone's queen. All I know of them is their names. Within me there is a deep strength and a burning flame. Ancestral atoms swirl inside with a knowingness unseen. I am a granddaughter, alive and unclaimed. All I know of them is their names. This next poem is called Clutch. after Diane Seuss. I drive to a playground and just listen to them laugh, watch as they spark conversations with each other, melt inside at imagination leading and questions not far behind. They glow outside of me, and my womb is an empty field of bleeding hearts. If there is truly the taste of regret stirred into this poem, it is warm milk leaking from my full breast into nothing's mouth. It is my arms formed into cradle, rocking no one back and forth, my lips mouthing silent songs, lullabying goodbyes to who was never born into hello. I drive to a playground, walk toward the whimsy of their day, sit on a small rusted horse on a fat metal spring and sway like a ghost. This is the lonely road of regret that leads to the grass underfoot of ache, the sighs of tomorrows empty of growing, the cycles of my uncreated children still sitting somewhere as stardust, hovering over me, waiting for the clutch of my hand to break through the sky. Under the table. My first boyfriend was in 5th grade, I guess. Renee Luna. Luna like moon, like a dead planet, cold and empty. But at 11, I thought I would try boys before totally committing my life to the love of women, their softness. And he was left-handed, so we held hands in social studies under the table. I never even kissed him once. My best friend Carmen and his best friend Mark were a couple too, so it was a thing. This puppy love, more like puppy lost. And did I mention I never kissed him once? And Carmen and Mark were probably running all the bases by that time, while I hid in the batter's box, swinging at shadows. And I wouldn't say my first and only boyfriend ever was anything close to love, but more like a test drive of a car you don't want. This old clunker of a thing, and you take it for a spin just to see that the steering is all wrong and there's a weird smell. But he was a nice kid, and we held hands in social studies under the table, his right hand in my left, both of us diligently keeping our pencils moving so our teacher, Mr. Signs, wouldn't see. Under the table, secret, so no one else would see, especially Kelly Nalzine, whose blonde hair was so pretty. Pipe organs inside a Japanese wind chime for Calabinium californicum. My God, it's so hot everywhere. 17 million gallons of sewage just spilled into the ocean over breakfast. Redwoods, matchstick, and mountains weep charred snow. Another 21 wild species become history. Oceans rise from ice caps melting and calving into the sea, all while we pretend we're surviving intersecting calamities. And reader, I just want to go outside, turn off the world breaking, and listen as a metallic blue mud dauber wasp vibrates a song no one has ever heard but me. I swear it. Tenor of hope here inside the bellowing giant barrels of the precision-tuned Japanese wind chimes my mom gave us as a Christmas present last year. Now, this maternally expecting, nesting, bright blue thing makes a tunnel of music inside a black metal pipe, singing a song of resilience in one of the higher chimes, if I had to guess it, in the key of G. Yes, here she is, blue blur, building cradles of mud, creating a pipe organ inside her own church. This gorgeous buzzing and building, reverberating almost through the whole house, if you listen close enough. Powered in flight by the nectar of flowers, and don't you wish you could say the same thing of yourself? Honestly, I don't know where this poem is going, but today the heartbreaks and disasters, both global and deeply personal, are answered in this holy song, this tenor of building and buzzing, building and buzzing, building and buzzing, a mother's unseen labor, tuning fork of the universe funneled down into mud making, a tunnel to some kind of good light, a nest for something to vibrate through, be it sorrow, be it prayer, be it love, be it hope of making it to the other side of all of this dark. Listen. I said, listen. Turn off the world breaking for a moment and listen. A mother is quietly building something out of nothing. The natural world still finds a way to sing. I think it's really important right now to speak on behalf of transgender youth and gender, non-binary youth and LGBTQ youth. They are in the crossfires right now. And if an LGBTQ young person has one affirming adult in their life, it reduces the risk of suicide by 40%. And so if you can be that one affirming adult, please do so. It is literally life-saving. This poem is called Gender is Fluid. My wife and I met a couple of tweens yesterday, grandchildren of a friend, a sister and younger brother bored at a party, the kind of outsider kids who magnetized to me when I taught high school. We struck up a conversation. We'd rather talk to the young ones anyway, hear their ideas, reflect back their light, share some hope. They opened like blooms, sensitive and beautiful. This morning, while putting on makeup side by side in the double mirrors of our bathroom, my wife said, "You know something? When I see a person, I don't really see a he or a she. I see a soul. But I thought the whole time he was a she wanting to be a boy, so I used he and him when talking to him. But his sister said, 'This is my brother,' and he really is a he. He really was her brother. Did I use the wrong pronouns?" And I remember the young, binary bending boy from yesterday, hair draped like black curtains on either side of their face, their softness, black nail polish painted on long fingernails, black eyeliner, mascaraed eyelashes framing crystal blue eyes that I swear saw into our souls as though some distant alien galaxy was opening, with that kind of knowing. And I said, "Don't worry, honey. They could feel your heart." The young ones today are like water. They don't fit into our squares. The box of binary is only a limitation for their expansive expression. And we, the generations before this Z and alpha, we try to fit them into our black and our white. We try to color them inside the lines. We cram them into confines because that is where we came from. When they are like water, clear-eyed in their autonomy. They are like sun burning through isms, making rainbows. They are like diamonds, prismatic in their non-conforming facets. And I remember the boy, the they, them, he, she, all into one, and no labels at the same time. And those eyes, those big, bright, beautiful blue eyes lined with thick, dark eyeliner as if to say, look, look here. Look in this mirror at what you could be too, if you believed you are limitless. Black snake. For Pantherapus obsoletus. Driving home from the vet, where our old dog gets a ketamine injection for his chronic osteoarthritis pain, he and I drive by a large black rat snake, splayed, bloody and writhing in the middle of our street, halfway out of its misery, run over, his snake body glistening like an oil slick, his entrails trailing a bright red pool, organs green and fleshy, protruding, ghastly. I slow to check on the poor creature, roll the window down to see if he is dead or not. Thick life stopped short and he moves, shapes and coils his body into, I swear, a heart, a swirl, a sign that he is still here yet unsalvageable. He lifts his head toward me. His round eyes meet mine, and I think of those cowboy movies where the gentle sheriff has to shoot his horse because it's broken its leg clomping through a rocky ditch. And I think, do I carry the same compassion in my bones? At the moment, no. I drive home, carry my old dog inside, and tell my wife of the black snake in the road. Is it suffering? Oh, Kai, it's suffering. She runs out the door, frantically paces the deck for a moment. How are you going to do it? I ask. Don't ask me that question right now. Tires skid, reverse, and I walk inside thinking of pleading snake eyes and a type of bravery that's unnamed. I look at Genghis, our old, sleeping good boy. His eyes drowsy from the ketamine, but the warmth and love in them still shine with the trust of a young puppy, his body curled into a heart. No choice. Since the Supreme Court land grabbed our bodies back to 1973, I have been searching for wounds inside other lives, asking if they know they have more freedoms than human bodies who can carry a child. I scream inside the deep wells of certain flowers, purple columbine, golden bells, red hibiscus, a floating white lotus, all with their impervious blooming, their wildness, their capability to wither at the whim of wind. I Google female sex organ of a flower and laugh at the irony of the word pistil, how a pistil in the flower kingdom carries an ovary and a stigma that has no shame. But in the human names, an ovary has the stigma of men's desires, and a pistil has less regulation than my womb. An AR-15 assault rifle in a classroom has more autonomy than the little girl it just blew bullets through. My heart keeps breaking at this country. I plead for light into the thousand faces of a mammoth sunflower, and they bow their pitying heads. Set 1,000 suns. I sit on my deck among the mourning doves cooing in the pine, and I too mourn what I thought was mine. This body, this skin and cells, this flesh, this bone. I am beyond mothering. No, my body will never home or vessel a child, but this red state will bleed redder still with the trigger band signatures of these scheming leaders enforcing an unholy law that strips us all of our dignity and ability to do what is best for our own damn bodies. I scream into my valley and my mountains scream back. I clip my fingernails and these little crescent moons ask me about ownership. Which cells of mine have been sold to the highest bidders? Which organs no longer do my own bidding? In 2 weeks, I will become Auntie Kai to a little girl, a niece who I cannot wait to meet, a sweet life who I've already met in my dreams, a new baby girl born into a world where she has more protection in her mother's womb now than she will when she comes out. Little girl, what is this world we have shaped for you when you have no choice to be born into it? And I'm going to finish my set with a new poem, a very new poem. I wrote it about a week after the election. Thank you again for this space, to my fellow readers and to everyone who's holding this space, especially Sandy. I am my own country now. I am seated at the very bottom of myself, at this time of highs and lows, ebbs and flows, moving through colors of emotion with no wind at my back, waiting to see if I can again pull myself up from the depths of defeat. Here I am, borderless inside myself, surrounded by a country that no longer dreams it can dream. I am my own country now, patriotic only for my own quiet tenderness, a citizen of loss and finding again a reason to hold on. The capital city of my heart sparks a little flame on the hilltop of my soft body, and I am trying to find again a reason to stand up for the vision of freedom I held for us all, to light the way somehow through all the impending, unabridged darkness. I am my own country now. My neighbors pushed a lotus back down into the mud when we were so close to the surface, when we were at the cusp of breakthrough, when we could almost see her iridescent petals reflecting the sunlit stars blushing with sweetness, now lost in a poisoned swamp of collectively stepping backwards. I am my own country now. I have taken the stars from the old flag and hung them from my eyelashes, left the red, left the stripes, left the scars, left the blue empty night square there as some long-lost pinpoint of progress. I am my own country now, and here the shores of my hands are slowly opening again from the fists of this, knowing the shapes of new truths. I am the only homeland that I know. No one can govern my life. No man owns my body, my choices. I am free. I am free. I am free. Even if I die in that freedom, I am my own country now, an individual revolution. I threshold my collarbones to greet first the small tender ones, the vulnerable green, the silent lichen and supple mosses, the sapling sycamore and autumn redbud, the black-capped chickadee, wood thrush, and squirrels, the swirling colors of my koi fish rippling outward their dances, my 2-year-old niece, Luca, smiling down a yellow slide into my arms, my gaggle of teenagers I bring into the forest, leaving poems as breadcrumbs home, my wife, too, defiant with hope, fiery with love, building her new citizens. We populate ourselves with those who can hold us and who we can hold, landlocked together in a country all our own. We chop firewood together, 2 axes splitting hardwood for winter, whatever cold and bitter may come. We cold plunge naked in our backyard pond, fresh and freezing again as torrential rains answer drought. We dig our fingers into cold black earth and drop red tulip bulbs into the soil, blanket them up again with the promise of spring, wrap ourselves too in that promise. We will stay close to our land, to the trees, to our small circles of love like this one. I will stay close to the poets, hold our words as the light. We are our own country now. Thank you.
Oh, I'm just taking a breath. I'm just taking a breath, Kai. I'm just taking a breath. You know, I always say I have the best seat in the house at these readings. But what good is the best seat in the house if I can't open the theater to everybody? And you know that better than anybody else. You are a poet and write a poetry of all, of and fullness and absolute limitless. And you break through the sky, as you mentioned. But what happens is we get touched and washed with the falling rain. It's extraordinary.
Oh, Sandy.
So thank you for your songs of resilience, expansiveness, and experience. And I'll see you in LA, my sister. And folks, see Kai on every Wednesday night to come.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Look at
you.
that shaft of light coming into Sandy right
I
there.
know. I
It's
might
so
have to
perfect.
just
That's-
kind of move it a little
that's-
bit.
That's
I'll
just
move it a
you.
little bit.
That's your aura.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
aura. Okay.
Can't wait to hear Marie.
Well, that is what we are about to do. Our final reader for today is Marie Howe. And, I just feel like Marie doesn't really need any introduction. but I'm going to do one anyway. And I'll just share a little anecdote. I had the opportunity to reconnect with Marie this summer and fall at two of her readings, and which meant I was seeing her for the first time in 30 years when I saw her read from what was then her debut collection, The Good Thief, because I was studying here in Boston and Cambridge, and she was here as well. And I answered an advertisement taped into the window of the Grolier Poetry bookshop here in Cambridge to study with her in her Cambridge apartment. And it has remained one of the brightest lights of my extraordinary 60th year on this planet to have seen her twice this year. Well, now three times. And also all the lessons that I have received from her over the years, whether she's known it or not. She's been a beacon to so many, not just me. She fills that light stream that's coming down around me over there. So we are so pleased that she could join us as part of her celebration of a milestone in her career as she is launching her new and selected poems. Well, Marie Howe is the author of New and Selected Poems from Norton this year, which includes poems from her previous four collections: Magdalene, The Kingdom of Ordinary Time, What the Living Do, and The Good Thief. From 2012 to 2014, she served as the Poet Laureate of New York State, and she is currently the poet in residence at the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine and a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. Would you please join me in welcoming Marie Howe?
Sandy, thank you so much. Can you hear me? All right. Well, I'm overwhelmed by listening to these beautiful women poets. Rachael, so good to hear you. Kai, so good to hear you. Sophie, so good to hear you. Yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed. And I'm so glad, Sandra, to have reconnected with you. It was stunning when we saw each other in Woodstock, New York last summer. And I'm just so glad to be part of this today. Thank you for including me. There's a poem called Postscript. What we did to the earth, we did to our daughters, one after the other. What we did to the trees, we did to our elders, stacked in their wheelchairs by the lunchroom door. What we did to our daughters, we did to our sons, calling out for their mothers. What we did to the trees, what we did to the earth, we did to our sons, to our daughters. What we did to the cow, to the pig, to the lamb, we did to the earth, butchered and milked it. Few of us knew what the bird calls meant or what the fires were saying. We took of earth and took, and the earth seemed not to mind until one of our daughters shouted, "It was right in front of you, right in front of your eyes, and you didn't see." The air turned red. The ocean grew teeth. The chainsaw. There's always a chainsaw somewhere. The high whine of a drill. Somebody building something or tearing it down, fastening metal to metal. Almost everywhere, the sound of the human will, the bluster of engine, the grind of a blade, the wheel, hammering, construction, repair. Someone nailed to a cross, someone leashed, lashed, someone hung from a scaffold. Listen, the squeak of the rope, the hammering. Kill him with his own gun, one woman shouted. Kill him with his own gun. What have we made? What are we making? And who or what made us that we should make such things as we do and did? We grow smaller. We break things, then turn to each other and beg for what no human can give. I was thinking about Persephone and how she was taken down into the underworld by a god and by a king, and how her mother grieved for her 6 months of the year, which makes our seasons. And these strange poems came to me, so I'm going to read 2 of them. Persephone. People forget he was a king, a god, and that down there deep, everything gleamed. So tight did he hold me. I was swaddled hard, so bound I couldn't move. And inside that grip, he moved, and it was a monstrosity, an ecstasy. I forgot myself. I became an animal again. I screamed. It didn't matter how long. No one put a hand over my mouth. And when it was over, I lay across his knees on my back, entirely open, nobody, no one, an animal on the altar of a king, a god. Here's Persephone and Demeter, her mother. My mother needn't have pretended to be appalled. She knows all about the Underdark. The seed must break open to rise. My mother is a god. She wanted to spare me. But my nature is nature. Like everything alive, I was meant to be split open, to blossom, to be sucked, to be eaten, to lean, to bend, to wither, to die and die and die before I died. I was so moved to hear, Kai, about your reading series during the pandemic. During the pandemic, this poem kind of came to me from somewhere else, and it was written in 2020, and it's called What the Earth Seemed to Say. It really was some other voice that came to me. What the Earth Seemed to Say. 2020. Do you still believe in borders now? Birds soar over your maps and walls and always have. You might have watched how the smoke from your own fires traveled on wind you couldn't see, wafting over the valley and up and over the hills and over the next valley and the next hill. Did you not hear the animals howl and sing, or hear the silence of the animals no longer howling? Now you know what it is to be afraid. You think this is a dream? It is not a dream. You think this is a theoretical question? What do you love more than what you imagine to be your singular life? The water grows clearer. The swans settle and float there. Are you willing to take your place in the forest again? To become loam and bark? To be a leaf falling from a great height? To be the worm who eats the leaf and the bird who eats the worm? Look at the sky. Are you willing to be the sky again? You think this lesson is too hard for you. You want the timeout to end. You want to go to the movies as before, to sit and eat with your friends. It can end now, but not in the way you imagine. You know, the mind that has been talking to you for so long, the mind that can explain everything. Don't listen. You were once a citizen of a country called I don't know. Remember the boat that brought you there? It was your body. Climb in. We have a little dog, Jack, who figures in a number of these poems. I'm going to read one of them called Jack and the Moon. Jack and the Moon. When driving home through the forest, I curled into bed to sleep. Sorry, after driving home through the forest, I curled into the bed to sleep, but Jack wouldn't let me. He whined and barked, high-pitched barks I'd not heard before. No, I said from under the blanket, no. Still he barked and paced and barked. No, Jack. Then yelped strange high yelps followed by low growls, as if he might, by the mere scope and scale of his pleading, persuade me, until I did finally throw off the covers and open the front door, through which he hurried, not to sniff or pee, but to sit on the lawn, his back to me, a small white dog, facing the moon, lit by a light so bright I could have read these words within it. And when I went to fetch him, he scooted farther away to sit tucked into himself, gazing into the flooded distance. A very cold night. I stood a while by the open door, calling, Jack, Jack, come now. Willful, stubborn dog. And when he didn't come, I curled up on the couch, wrapped in a shawl, and dozed for I don't know how long. Then woke, went again to the door, and said quietly, Jack. It was then he turned and came in, cold and calm, soaked with the moon. And I think I'll end with this poem called Hymn. And I'm thinking of what Rachael was talking about, vision, and how it's embarrassing to imagine the future in a way that we really want, because some cynical part of ourselves doesn't believe it's possible to imagine what we want so that it would happen. And I think of our William Blake, who said, what was once imagined, what is now proved, was once only imagined. So here's a poem called Hymn, and I'll finish with this. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Hymn as in song, as in sacred song, Hymn. It began as an almost inaudible hum, low and long for the solar winds and far dim galaxies. A hymn growing louder for the moon and the sun, a song without words, for the snow falling, for snow, conceiving rain, the rivers rushing without shame, the hum turning again higher into a riff of ridges, peaks, hard as consonants, summits and praise for the rocky faults and crust and crevices, then down to the roots and rocks and burrows, the lakes' skittery surfaces, wells, oceans, breaking waves, the salt deep, the warm bodies moving within it, the cold deep, the deep underneath gleaming. Some of us rising as the planet turned into dawn, some lying down as it turned into dark, As each of us rested, another woke, standing among the cast-off cartons and automobiles. We left the factories and stood in the parking lots, left the subways and stood on the sidewalks, in the bright offices, in the cluttered yards, in the farmed fields, in the mud of the shanty towns, breaking into harmonies we had not known possible, finding the chords as we found our true place, singing in a million keys, the human hymn of praise for every something else there is and ever was and will be, the song growing louder and rising. Listen, I too believed it was a dream. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marie. And thank you for those songs. And for reminding me and everyone in the room that we are citizens of the country I don't know. It's perhaps the greatest lesson of our however long we live to reach that lesson of we don't know. Each of your poems for me offers us a different definition, a very prismatic definition of what the world can make of us and what we can never make of a world we have never owned, that we have never owned.
That's beautifully said, Sandy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. Just memory of that remembered now. That's really what we have. So, and thank you for those extraordinary poems demonstrating that today. Well, I want to thank also, of course, Rachael, Sophie, Kai, and Marie for your extraordinary circle of poetry that you created, your extraordinary constellation. And all of you out there who've been listening deeply to their light. So if you would take a moment, please unmute and show your appreciation for our poets today.
Yay! That was
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
bravo. Mahu. Mahu, mahu,
All the
mahu.
love.
Mahu, Mahu.
Thank you, all of you beautiful poets.
Thank you.
Incredible reading.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Kai.
That's
Thank
my
you all for
mom.
coming or
Thank you
showing
for
up
being-
or sharing the
Yes.
space.
Thank you,
Yes.
Sandy.
Thank you, everyone.
Sanak,
Thank
sanak.
you. Thank you, everyone, for
Salam,
showing
Rachael.
up. And I want to just, before we close out for today, just want to say, thank you for this gift of this afternoon, now evening, as you saw nightfall here on my very screen. I just want to remind you that our final reading coming up will be next Sunday, December 15th. It's our 5th annual holiday poetry open house, or as we fondly call it, our Ho-Po-O. It's a festive open mic with door prizes and all of you and your beautiful voices on the open mic. That will end our programming for December. And of course, we will be back in January in our festive new year with our Poets Focus. The theme of that open mic is on the word art. We will begin with creation, the creation of the divine from your imaginations. So do mark those on your calendar. That'll be December 15th and January 5th. Once again, my deepest gratitude to Rachael Hegarty, Sophie Cabot Black, Kai Coggin, and Marie Howe for just an extraordinary reading. And I love it when the poets create their own tapestry without knowing that that is what they are creating together. And the four of you did it seamlessly, as if you had choreographed this together, which I know you did not do. So thank you so, so much. Folks, I look forward, of course, to seeing you next week. And as I always say at the end of the program, thanks to Don Krieger, Kim Ports Parsons for your extraordinary care and support. We wouldn't be here without all of you. And of course, to our audience here today. And thank you to my host here in Cambridge. It's my former college professor hosting me here today. So a little shout out to you, Sue. And also a reminder, as I say at the end of the program, please this week and every day and every breath of your life, take extremely good care of yourselves. Take extraordinary care of your beloveds in all forms of that beloved's take. And keep writing your extraordinary poetry. That is what the world needs right now and every minute. I'll see you next time. Take very good care.